What is going on? It is 8 o'clock and we are live. It is another episode number 2 of The Journey. You are with me tonight. I'm so sorry. My co-host couldn't join me tonight. Miss Michelle McClain could not join me tonight. But I do have a special treat for you tonight. I promise you I do. We'll give just a minute or two for people to hop in here. We're going to let just a few more people get in here. What is going on, everybody? Yes, please, if you could, share this out. What is going on? What is going on? It is your favorite guy, Demetrius Naylor, and we are live today on The Journey. I have a special guest tonight, but before we do, I just want to talk about one thing. I just want to say one thing. I just want to say I love you guys. I love all the support that we got. We got over 1,000 views last week. All the support, all the love, all the sharing. Remember what I said, sharing is caring. But guys, you did amazing. So many people reached out to us and said, we love The Journey. It's not scripted. It's not, we don't write notes up. I promise you, I don't have any notes around me. It's just real. It's raw. It's a private conversation. Last week was with me and Michelle McClain. As you know, AT&T is down, so she couldn't be live with us tonight. But we're going to do our best without her. And I'm so excited to talk to a brother in Christ, to talk to a man of God, to talk to a guy that I'm just talking about within the first 5 minutes of meeting Mr. Schomburg, like my life was changed forever. And that is no understatement. The wisdom that this man carries is just amazing. Anybody that's had a chance to talk to him or get to know him knows that he is amazing. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring Mr. Bill Schomburg on, and let's get started. Mr. Schomburg, good evening.
Good evening, brother.
How are you?
I'm always humbled by those words, but I appreciate you so much. And besides your faith, anybody who doesn't know what kind of a cook you are, chef extraordinaire. So I would encourage everybody listening, if you ever get the chance to have Mr. Naylor cook for you, take advantage of it.
Oh, you're too kind, sir. You're too kind. Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. Oh my God, our time in Ohio, it was such a pleasure. Got to meet you, got to see your beautiful house, but more importantly, I got to hear your story. And that for me is one of the things that when we talked about this, me and Michelle, so a lot of people don't know that me and Michelle talked about this, but I had this in my head for a long time. And so did Michelle. So it was crazy. We were talking about that last week, that we both had this crazy faith idea about having a podcast and having a show, but we just didn't know how or when or what we were going to do. We just knew that we had to get the message out there. But getting wrapped up in all the different shows that are out there, we kept just like, we don't want to do that, and we don't want to do this. We want to create our own lane. So we were just like, let's have private conversations with people and talk about their journey and what their level of success looks like, what their life looks like. And the first name that came up was, we got to have Bill on here immediately. We got to have Bill on here. And I didn't understand. Like, I knew we had been on Rise and Grind. We had talked, we had, message. You did my intro for the Big Sellers Mastermind group that Lisa Copeland did. You did my thing, but just the 2 minutes that we talked on the phone, I mean, it was a blessing. But then I knew it when I met you in person. I was like, now I know why Michelle wants to have him on here. Now I know why she wants to be the first guest. And she is so sad. Everybody, you got to know, she is so sad. We just got off the phone. She's so sad that she couldn't be here tonight. But let's dive into it, Mr. Bill. Who is Bill Schomburg? If you had to sum it up, who is Bill Schomburg?
So some people you'll hear them talk about what they want on their tombstone, and I guess that's a fair place to start.
Yes, sir.
Because I'd like to be known as a follower of Christ, a loving husband. Although my late wife passed away at the end of December.
Sorry to hear that.
A good stepfather to my children, and a horseman. And I add the horseman part because it was my first career, and really everything that I know about people, I did learn from a horse. Yeah. Using faith as a foundation. Before I became a Christ follower, I was a horse trainer. And even looking back at that path, I can see all of the times that before I knew Christ, he knew me. And the places that he protected me and grew me and allowed me to fail and love me like only a father in heaven can. But it wasn't until I came to know the relationship with Jesus Christ. I became a Christ follower in 1999. And that was 2 years after my wife and I were married. And it was just a powerful moment. Now, short story around that.
Now, real quick, before you get into that, a lot of people, just because of the way you carry yourself, a lot of people, even including myself, thought that you were just a man of Christ for your entire life. Like, you just walk with that light. I mean, me and my wife talk about that, like the light that certain people carry. And you can hear her in the back. She's loving every minute of this. But we talk about the certain light that certain people carry, but it is crazy to hear your story because you haven't followed Christ super long, but you are in depth with knowledge that somebody you would think that has been 40, 50, 60 years of following Jesus Christ. Like, tell us that story, because I mean, I think they need to hear that story to your faith journey, your faith walk. What did that look like for you?
Well, I don't want to glorify bad behavior, but I was the furthest thing from a Christ follower. I mean, if you want the bottom line, if I can be redeemed by the love and the shed blood on the cross, then there isn't any reason that anyone, with whatever has happened in their lives, whatever God has allowed or created, there isn't anyone that can't come to him in full disclosure and him love them with unconditional love, Amen. forgiveness of sin, any of those aspects. And the short story of accepting Christ. So I was a cowboy. I was part of a co-chair that was responsible for bringing the National High School Finals rodeos east of the Mississippi for the first time. And at the end of that event, the Sunday at the end of that event, there was a cowboy church service, and we were in a coliseum that would seat about 8,000 people. Mm-hmm. There were 600 or 700 people in attendance, and long story short, if I knew I was going to accept Christ that day, I would have sat way closer to the altar. But
the walk is never easy.
Exactly, but that's where it took place. And for a while, I asked, my question to the Lord was, why there, Lord? And his answer was always, these people have known you for the better part of 44 years of your life. These are the people who will see the change in you. And it was dramatic and instantaneous. And I don't mean that I became perfect by any means. I did not. But if there is an accelerated path to learning, I bought in from the moment that Christ came into my life. And the learning process, which continues today, started on that day. And mm-hmm. I was God had provided already, he had already prepared the journey that was going to accelerate my education. Our next door neighbors, a husband and wife, became key in my wife and I's development. And she asked me that day after I got home, does that mean I have to do that too? I said, I don't think that's how it works, but we'll just figure it out. And about a year and a half later, she accepted Christ as well. And the same couple next door, the wife, became critical in my wife's development. They introduced us to the church that became our church home, where I became a constant volunteer, and eventually was part of the elder board at two different sections of the life of that church, the church was over 100 years old. I didn't have any influence on the life of it. But the impact and the introduction to the ideas of leadership, the influence of the change in the way that I viewed leadership, the position of elder in a church is probably the most challenging, enriching, enlightening, difficult position I've ever held. I've owned companies. I have worked in all different roles, from cleaning stalls to high levels of achievement in the competition world of training and showing horses. Mm-hmm. I was a subject matter expert in the synthetic grass industry. All of those roles pale in comparison when it comes to the role of an elder or leadership in the church. And I don't claim to be a theologian. I make no claims around what the preparation is for that, because it's God that prepares people. And I don't hold myself up in any way, or I don't want to hold myself up as being better than, more ready than anyone. You're never ready for the journey that Christ prepares you for.
Never. And you said a very key point, and something that impacted me. I remember when I first heard it from you. it impacted me because it was so near and dear to my own story. You said that you found Christ before your wife did, before your late wife did. Excuse me. Now, with that being said, that is a thing that a lot of believers, a lot of people, even myself, get confused, that your path may not be the same as your spouse's path. Your path may take longer. Your path may be shorter. Your path may be wider. Your path may be narrower, but there's never a time when your two paths are going to be exactly aligned. God individualizes the walk in which he creates for each individual person. And when you said that to me, when I was sitting in your back on your back porch, I was just like, wow, because me and my wife was led to the cross before I was. And I, like, out of ego, and I remember telling you this, out of ego and out of pride, I was like, oh, that is not for me. That is not for me. Like, we've been living just fine. Life is good. But she was strong enough in her faith that she walked away and said, when you're ready, I'm here. But until that time, we're not gonna live in sin, and we're not gonna do those things. And I said, okay. And ego and pride got in the way, and I was like, all right, well, we'll see you. And we split up. And I mean, like, just man's pride, ego and pride. I'll be completely transparent. Like, we split up for 6 to 9 months. You have to forgive me. I just got out of the gym, but
no worries.
We split up for almost 6 to 9 months, and you know what I mean. It took, like I was telling the story last week with Michelle, it took a hurricane and only having one book in the house to be able to say, you know what, this is what I've been missing.
I love that part of your story.
I passed on my calling because of all of this. What? You know what I mean? It blew me away. So, you know what I mean? It was so crazy how, you know what I mean, you talked about that. And I was so like struck. I was like, wow, he beat her there. But in that process, though, you never judged her or faulted her. You know what I mean? You just guided and showed her and continued being that steward yourself. Therefore, she followed in suit later on. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, the interesting part in our relationship, so we'd been married a couple of years. Usual stresses. I'm a stepfather, so I was introduced into the children's lives. I have 3 wonderful, amazing grown adult stepchildren. I have a grandson in Chicago that I still haven't met because of the shutdown. But it's interesting in the development. My wife actually became a better student than I was of Scripture. I had a relationship with an executive pastor. It turned out to be the last time that he and I met in person, but he had taken me under his wing to walk alongside me with my development. And I'd had it on my heart that I'd never read the Bible all the way through. So we're talking 2005. And turned out to be the last meeting he and I had face to face. He had a year concordance of the Bible so that I could use that to read it all the way through. I've actually used that 3 different times to read all the way through the Bible in a year. And again, that's not a brag. That's a couple of key points. You said earlier about how God prepares us each, and his preparation of how he reveals himself in our lives, if we don't know him, is very unique.
Yes.
And so people can hear the excitement in our voice. They can hear about our story, and it'll resonate with some people. But the key thing is to remember, we're just the seed. We may never see the final the flowering of the relationship with Christ that some people experience. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I thought I was supposed to convert everybody when I was a new follower. and it led to some really difficult family conversations. And finally, the Lord said to me, I happened to be talking to one family member, and the Lord said, Bill, I haven't shown them what I've shown you. and I won't show you what I'm going to show them or have
Hmm.
shown them. But he
Ooh.
uses that really unique journey that only us as individuals, that's why the relationship with him is so powerful, because it's a one-to-one relationship. You're not supposed to know everything about somebody else's journey unless Christ or God allows or creates it. I believe he allows and creates circumstances in our lives to draw us closer to him. And whoever I am as an individual, it comes back to that, whether I'm talking to a business relationship, whether I'm mentoring. Again, just before the shutdown, I'd take on a mentoring role in a local high school here in Cincinnati. The week they shut down was the week that school got canceled. So I never got to meet my mentee this year. So I'll meet him in the fall, but it's all of the experiences. I'm in the process, the project that I've been working on for the last 2.5 years with my brother. Christ is at the center of that relationship.
Yes.
Because whether or not the business is successful, the people that we've been introduced to, we could only have been introduced to them through the relationships he's created and allowed. There's no other explanation. We just had an exciting development this afternoon. I can't share more about it because I don't know more right now. But it's again a door that was opened only through a relationship that God could have created.
Yeah.
So that's I guess that's who I am at my core. I think I'm stumbling a little bit here. So
no,
I'll let you.
No, you're doing fine. So with that being said, your relationship, you mentioned the fact that a horse is no different than a human. Now, with the relationship you have with a horse is no different than a relationship with a human. Can you tell us more about that and tell us why you feel that way? Because when you explained it to me, I was like, a horse and a human? I was like, I know he didn't just compare me to a horse and a human. And like, I sat there at first when I was listening to you say it, I was like, did he just say that? But then I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So tell everybody more about that.
I think that's probably a little bit of a mischaracterization. What you said it that night when we were sitting on the back porch, I wish we'd have just had a recording of our conversation, because it was just fabulous in all respects. But the real thing that I mean is human nature. I'm a student of human nature. Okay. And understanding how we're all created the same in his eyes. Every person on earth, not just people in America, not just people in your circle, every individual is created equally in his eyes. He does not create junk. He doesn't make mistakes when he creates us. The human nature piece, and where it resonates or relates to my experience with horses, I'll use some examples. So if you've ever met anybody that wanted to leverage people through fear, well, for my experience, so a horse weighs a grown horse on average will weigh about 1,100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And when I was first a horse trainer, I could intimidate him through fear pretty effectively. But when the horse realizes that it does not like that environment and decides to leave, somebody's going to get hurt, and it's not going to be the horse. It's the same with people. Look at where we are as a nation right now. There's so much distrust. There's so much anger, frustration, hurt. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. I'm gonna take a little detour here right now.
By all means.
Simon Sinek has a perspective around relationships, and they're based on trust. So look at the dating relationship. You know, it takes longer than 7 days or a week to build trust.
Facts.
But if you're in a relationship and it's at the 7-year point and somebody hasn't made a commitment, why is there no trust at that point? There should be. So my point is, or Simon Sinek's point is, as a nation, and he wasn't referring to the current situations going on. He's just talking in general. It takes longer than a week to build trust, but it doesn't take 7 years. So if we as individuals, meaning I don't care what the government wants to do, I don't care what my local municipality or any of the individuals in elected positions want to do, I know what I have to do as an individual. And I'm back to the relationship with Christ. It's one-to-one. I'm a huge Marcus Stone fan. Michelle's probably talked about Marcus Stone when we were together on my back porch.
Yeah,
Marcus
awesome.
has one of the most intelligent perspectives and deliveries around that perspective. So with all that said, I'll wrap up the idea of we can't fix what's wrong in a week, but we could fix it inside of 7 years.
Yes.
And I don't mean to make it sound like it's just a panacea. It's up to each one of us individually to make a difference. And my role through the love of Christ, you talked about we both talked about our relationships with our wives. Rick Warren, the author of Purpose Driven Life.
Yes.
He summed up that relationship with your spouse this way. It's not about, Christ cares more about our character than he does our comfort. So if you're going to figure out your character, you're going to have to abandon your comfort.
Ooh, that's a word right there. I did a small video the other day on TikTok. I do like some of my quickest little snippets come from TikTok. Like I get on TikTok just because that's an unreached audience. I have a little over 10,000 followers on there, but that's just an unreached audience there. But I feel like people, whenever I get online, people always ask me, are you a pastor? Are you a minister? And me and my wife always talk about this. I think I've been called to a place, an uncommon place, a place where very few know that relationship. So I'm sent there. So it's funny you talk about character and comfort. I'm sent to an uncomfortable place. So I'm sent to the TikTok. I'm sent to the Snapchat. I'm sent to the places where some of the deviance is going on. But you know what I mean? It just takes one. I always say in my lives, I'm only here to save one soul at a time. I can only save one soul at a time. But all of that to say is I talked about this the other day and I said, nothing changes if nothing changes. I don't know who originally said it, but we cannot expect change to be comfortable. We cannot expect change to be miraculous, meaning it's not going to be an overnight thing. Now, again, I said this the other day. I do not agree with the rioting, the looting. I don't think that's the way to go about things. I don't think Dr. King died for that purpose, for us to go about things this way. He was a man of peace, a man of honor, a man of character, and intrinsic value, that inner value that you place above everything else. So when I hear people say, this is still going on 7 days later, I'm just like you. I'm like, this wasn't an overnight mistake. So why should it be an overnight fix? Do I think that we as a nation and as a people need to heal? Yes, we do. But at the end of the day, when the scab keeps getting ripped off over and over and over, you never allow healing. But at the same time, though, people on both sides of this thing, I'm not going to bring race into it, but people on both sides of this thing, Republican, Democrat, black, white, it doesn't matter. When people come together and recognize that change, above all else, God first with some change, because we're all aware. I've said this too. We've talked about the fact that there's been awareness and a lot of people are aware. Everybody keeps preaching awareness. I think it is time for change, but it starts with that one-to-one relationship like we have with Christ, like you said. And I just love the way you characterize that. And you said it is that one-to-one relationship that will spread and infect a nation. If we can infect a nation with hate, discontent, and chaos, why can't we infect a nation with love, kindness, and compassion?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because, you know, you and I that we're on Facebook, and for me, it's a love-hate relationship. There's part of my audience there, in the automotive industry that I need to connect with and form relationships to do business. But I'll never forget, I was driving actually to meet Marcus Stone up in Indianapolis. And on the way, I saw a thread where two members of my family were engaging. And I pulled over to the side of the road. I was crying so hard I couldn't see, because the conversation could have gotten really bad, meaning two differing opinions, both people that I love and care deeply for. And I thought to myself, not in my family. You are not going to invade my family, because I know both of you better than this.
Yeah.
And I was going to write a post about, I hate Facebook. But in reality, Facebook's not the problem. But most people don't understand. That's probably too broad a statement. I will say that some people don't realize Facebook's really a mirror.
Yeah.
And when you write on Facebook, you're holding a mirror up for everyone else to look at you.
Ooh,
and
that part.
You're giving them the chance to either shine your mirror for you, pull out the Windex and make that bright, shiny mirror, or to throw rocks at it and break your mirror.
Yes.
So blaming Facebook's no different. It's just another piece of the puzzle. Arguing on Facebook, there are some people who use the platform very well and intelligently, but we have to be careful of the narrative, whatever narrative, because we all have an agenda. I have one, you have one. We all have desires. My pride is my biggest sin, meaning it's the riskiest place for me is when I'm stuck in my pride. Yes. And I can't see the log in my own eye. I'm worried about the splinter in somebody else's.
I'm guilty.
So I just offer that as perspective. I'm not trying to be condemning. I have written stupid things on Facebook. They live in infamy. I'm back to that relationship piece, and I'll tie it back to the horses. I told a story on the 24-hour live that you referenced about
yes.
a woman and her horse that I dealt with. And so that's over 20 years ago that relationship happened. And the evening of that live, that woman contacted me and told me something I didn't ever realize. The interaction that she and I had that day when her horse got hurt, she told me changed her life.
Wow.
And I didn't have any idea. She told me it not only changed her life, the way she handled her horses, but the way she dealt with people. Now, if you want to feel humbled, imagine that you had an impact on somebody's life 20 years ago and how much you had watched them grow and change and didn't realize you had a part in it. I think she gave me too much credit, but I'll go back even further. And I know we're running short on time here. We're actually over. Another student of mine in the horse business 3 Christmases ago sent me a package. And when I first met her, I think she was 13 years old. And the package that she sent me was a watercolor calendar, different horses and their riders from around the world selected to be in the calendar. And I'd seen the horse that she was selected with the calendar or for the calendar. Just an amazing animal that she was mounted on. But on the page, she said, Palmy and I are May. And on the page, she had attached a sticky note and it said, thank you for teaching me confidence. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Again, the impact, and all it did, here's the point. I'll tie this all together. If someone has impacted your life, tell them. Make sure you let them know. And if that someone in the same way as Christ has impacted your life, then make sure you tell people. It doesn't have to be a sermon. It doesn't have to be preaching at them. You're not trying to convince them to believe what you believe. But if something or someone has changed your life, then say something. The power of that conversation, both in your life for the gratitude you're showing and in their life for the impact, there's nothing like it. Show that gratitude.
Gratitude, attitude. I think our friend Danelle Delgado always talks about that. Gratitude, attitude. We are over, and I apologize. I always say I never want to keep people for a long time, but how could you not? How could you not want to build Shaw? Look, and I had like one or two questions in my head, but I was just so enthralled. I feel like Josh showed, and I really want to take a quick second to say hello to everybody that popped on here today. I mean, we got Sarah Hoagie in here, Michelle McLean's watching. We've got Mary in here. We've got Herbert Anderson, my wife, of course. We've got, let's see, Josh O is in the building. Miss Karen Morgan is in the building. I appreciate everybody that tuned in. I know we went over a little bit today, but just the words and the bombs of wisdom that you dropped tonight. I appreciate you, sir. I am glad to have called you my friend. I am glad to call you my brother in Christ. And I am so thankful for you tonight. And thank you for sharing what you shared with me, with everyone else, and taking a picture and a moment of time into your journey. We appreciate you, Bill.
Thank you for giving me a voice, and I can't wait till the next time we break bread together.
Yes, sir.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. I'll see you in just a second. Hold on. Guys, well, that's it. It is your man, Demetrius Naylor. I don't even know what to say. Bill is an amazing human, a superhuman. I love him to the end of the earth. I had to share him with you. Michelle was 100% correct. We had to share him with you guys. Guys, don't forget to go hop on Lions, Sharks, and Bulls with Glenn Lundy and the team, Matt Monero, Judge Graham. They're on probably right now. We ran over a little bit. But I always want to say, I love you. God loves you. Thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of The Journey. It's your guy, Demetrius Naylor.